I'm Peter Anastas,
James Cook.
and we're talking about the Charles Olson Centennial Week. It starts the 3rd of October, and it goes until the 10th of October with events every single day, which are celebrating the legacy of the great Gloucester poet, Charles Olson.
Yes, I thought we'd maybe say a few things about Charles and why it would be worth celebrating him 100 years after his birth and 40 years after his passing. So for me and for my students at Gloucester High School, Charles Olson is a sort of a model of how to find out about the world for yourself and to really immerse yourself in walking around, taking a look at the city, knowing your neighborhood well, knowing the politics of your ward and precinct, as Charles might say, and also digging into the adding to that the reading and what you can offer from there. So that this Gloucester is a rich place that we can all learn more about and learn about ourselves in this process.
Yeah, and Olson helps us do it. I mean, you think poets they live in an ivory tower. They're not dealing with everyday life. Olson was on the ground in Gloucester. He was walking everywhere. He was looking everywhere. He was talking to the cop on the beat. He was talking to the fishermen bringing in their catch on the wharf, and he wrote about it in the poems. They're about Gloucester people living their lives every single day. And what does it mean to live in a place like Gloucester? And for him, Gloucester was a microcosm of the world. If you understood Gloucester, according to Olson, you understood the world.
I think that's a real powerful thing for people to immerse themselves in. I think not to understand how Olson saw all of this, and then also to be inspired to do that for themselves as well. To take these things that we deal with here so seriously as to immerse yourself into that reality and to see how does all of this relate to the larger world beyond.
How does it relate to the larger world, and what's our relationship to Gloucester? What's Gloucester's relationship to the larger world? What's our relationship to the larger world? And I would also say this: I would like to invite everybody in Gloucester to come to these. It's going to start on the 3rd of October at the Cape Ann Museum with the launching of a book of letters from Olson to people in Gloucester. People, Joe Garland, Vincent Farini, a number of people who were alive in Gloucester, and some are still alive, including me. And then they're going to be readings of poetry during the week. You can go to the Gloucester Times and get a schedule, and we'll post the links so you can have that. And also, the big weekend will be the 8th, 9th, and 10th. There'll be a marathon reading at the UU Church on Friday night. The 8th, there's going to be a reading by the great poet Diane Dupree, a poet laureate of San Francisco, and Michael Rummaker, a poet and novelist who was Olson's student, on Saturday night. And you take over.
And earlier in the day on Saturday, we'll have a couple panel discussions.
Yes.
Very interactive. We think of them as kind of town meeting style discussions. One will start at 10:30. The other will pick up after lunch. Before that, actually 9 a.m.
That's right.
Henry Farini will read from the children's book, Little Charlie Goes to Gloucester. So we're getting all ages involved. And what am I missing,
You
Peter?
can catch Henry's film at 4 o'clock Saturday afternoon at the Cape Ann Community Cinema. And then there's the reading at night. And then what about Sunday?
Sunday, we'll meet at the Historical Museum at 11 o'clock.
Oh, we're meeting at 11 o'clock Sunday at the Historical Museum. And guess what we're going to do?
We're going to walk.
We're going to walk.
That most Olsonian of things to do, right?
We're going to take you on a walk through Olson's Gloucester. We're going to show you the places that Olson wrote about, and we're going to read from some of the poems in which those places are mentioned. And then after that,
we'll end up over at the Blackburn Performing Arts Center for several performances. We'll have a couple dance performances, and then including Apollonius at Tyana and which
is a play that was a dance play by Olson.
And then we'll have our own Willie Alexander will perform for us, including some Olson poems that he set to music.
So there's something for everybody in the Olson Week, and we would invite you very strongly to come and partake. Check us out on the web for more details, and we're very happy to share this information with you, and hope that you will come and enjoy the week with us.
Third letter on George's, unwritten. In this place is a poem which I've not been able to write, or a story, to be called The Eastern End of George's, about a captain I knew about, as of the days when it was important to race to market, to the Boston market, or directly into Gloucester, when she had fresh fish, and how this man had such careful charts of his own, of these very shallow waters along the way to market, if you were coming in from the winter cod grounds on the eastern end. The point was to cut the corner if you were that good or that crazy, though he was as good as they come. He even had the charts marked in different colored pencils, and could go over those rips and shoals dug out in a storm, driving a full loaded vessel and down to her deck edge, across them as a wagon might salt licks or unship her wheels and ferry across. It is a vision, or at least an experience, I make off as though I have had, to ride with a man like that. I even have the picture of him sitting on his cabin floor, following those charts like a race sheet, while taking the calls down the stern passageway. And if it sounds more like Henry Ware or Paul Cotter in The Eyes of the Woods, it could be so, for I've looked and looked for the verification and the details of sail at a time when there were no engines. And I went to James Connolly, expecting to be able to depend upon him, but somehow he hasn't come across, or it's all too prettied up. And it was either Boland or Sylvanus Smith, or it may have been someone as late as Marty Callahan. But the roar of this guy going through the snow and bent to a northeaster, and not taking any roundabout way off the shoals to the north, but going as he was, up and down dale like a horseman out of some English novel, makes it with me. And I want that sense here of this fellow going home. And here's a rocker called the Gulf of Maine, which is hopefully my 17th century. Olson says they were in a pinnace off Monhegan, season 1623, having left Cape Ann, and trove mightily until in Damerscove Harbor they split up in a storm. The sides of the vessel, with the current running north-northeast, were ground in turn by the same rock wall the vessel, switching about like a Bob and his wife at Captain Bridges in London, reached by mail via Plymouth's agent, address High Court Row and Street by Chancery Light. Could not have imagined, had they known that night their husbands were on such a shore, and bandied as they were. 4 men alone of all of them dragged themselves up in the early morn out of the wash of that dreadful storm, so many chips among ground timbers of what was left of the pinnace. Such was the coast, when sturdy oak-built 17th century little boats out of London and Weymouth cast their nets. King James said, "We do approve of the pilgrims going to the sand shore of Virginiae. If fishing is the holy calling, they go there. About dear James for crawfish did they go. Madam Altham, Madam Bridge called on James Shirley one bright city morning for pounds and sterling, sturdy pence in recompense of their dear husbands. So the night was growly, the waves were high, the high-built pinnace tossed the winds down, pressed the little James until she was far spent, and 4 went head down into the sea below the waves. Her sticky masts with thick crows' nests were up above the waves, and broken stumped wild balls of fire played over where their heads below the water filled, and shoes and coats pulled down the crew. And Captain Bridge and Mr. Altham swam like underbodies going by in an outrageous park or film until their knees were smashed on small rocks as their poor pinnace likewise poorly lay, charmed mostly, but some parts of her bruised sides now resting on the sands, where we shall dig them up and set them upright as posts at just the signal place for tourists to come by, and not give one idea why such odd cults stand along a fishing shore though not much used at the present time, and mostly well-dressed persons frequent it.